Good day, everybody. This is John Scarborough. I wanted to talk today about silvopasture and about some work we're doing to help feed our sheep. Y'all are going to have to bear with me. I'm trying out a new product here. This is a mic, so if y'all have any trouble picking up the wind or anything like that, or because of the mic, then just bear with me. We're trying to learn. So without any further ado, we're going to walk down in here. We're going to walk through and look at everything we've done. This is something we did over the course of the winter, and we're going to show y'all what you can do to increase your land and to increase some of the productivity of your land. If you have X amount of acres, say you got 5, 10, 15, 20 acres, some of it's wooded, some of it's pasture, and you're trying to get more production out of that land, this is going to show you some different strategies you can do to get some more income or at least some more food off of your land. All right, guys, so you can kind of see behind me some of what we've done. We've actually done some cutting. We've coppiced these trees is what we've done. So some of them we've cut down at a lower height. Some of them we've cut at a higher height. But where this is basically the edge of the forest. So back over here we have a forest. On this other side we have the pasture, okay? This is your forest edge right here. So you get some sunlight, but not really enough, okay? So there's a couple points to this that I want to get into, and I'm going to show you as we go. One of the points is this creek right here, okay? We'll look at that here in just a second, but let's look at where the creek starts before we do anything. If you look over here, and by creek, this is actually just runoff from a pond, but it's a pretty good bit of runoff. It's not from our pond, it's from the neighboring property. The creek comes from right here, goes through that fence, and it's, like I said, it doesn't run all the time, although I'm not sure that there isn't a spring somewhere in there because it stays pretty wet, okay? But if you look right here, this has not been grown up. This whole section right here has been stayed clear. So we've backed a brush hog. You can see the trees right here. That's where the trees started. That's where it all started, okay? We could back a brush hog in right here, and we'd go all the way up into this corner, and we'd keep this corner clean, okay? This spot, this is where all the water came through, okay? Notice how there's grass and there's no real cutting of your soil, okay? Now we're going to walk back in here right where the forest started. I want you to look at the line right here, okay? You might have to get a little bit closer. Literally exactly in the line of the trees where it started. If you look right here, you can see it right here. You'll have to come down and look at it. You can literally see cutting in your soil right there. Exactly where you got shade, okay? If you look all back in there, there's no cutting. It's nice, smooth, even ground. As soon as you start getting shade, you've got cutting, okay? All the way back in here, we'll see it as we go. You'll see more of this cutting. The water is cutting through, and the reason it's cutting through is because there's no sunlight, so it's not allowing any life. It's not allowing any growth or anything like that. And that's an interesting point because a lot of people tend to think that the best thing for our planet and for erosion is actually to allow the entire world to come back to forest. But we actually, a lot of times, if you get too dense of a forest, you're not germinating life. You're not getting enough growth and sunlight to actually hold the soil. So what we've done here is we haven't cut all the trees out. We didn't just wipe them out and scalp everything. We've left a few strategic trees, okay? Sometimes you can leave trees that are, pretty depending on where you're at. Right here in this case, we're just below our where our home site is. So we've left the willow trees. For one, the willows do well in this wetter area. But number two, it's a pretty tree. And since we are below our house, we want to keep it a little bit prettier, okay? But ordinarily, I would focus on leaving things like nut trees, acorn trees, and things like that. So I did leave a few nut trees, and I left a few other trees that in the future I could still take down if I want to. Since I know we've taken down so many, there's no reason to get into a rush and just take it all down. But essentially what you do is you come in here and you just start knocking the stuff down, okay? But I want you to notice what we did. We left these stumps at different heights. This one right here is the same height as me. You can see I'm starting to get a lot of life here. There's a couple reasons for this. And if you'll view in real close, you can see there's an explosion of life all down this tree. This tree would never grow life all along here. It was only growing life at the very top, okay? But now it's getting an explosion of life. So what is this doing? Well, this is at the height that animals can reach, right about here. You're gonna get your pigs, you're gonna start eating right here, and your sheep are gonna start eating right here. Some of your goats, like a boar goat, might even eat up into here. This one's tall enough that it would actually stay alive, and the boar goat couldn't ever kill it off. But the biggest reason we've left it tall is because this is an oak tree, this is a hardwood, and this would be really good for making mushrooms later on. I don't have time to make mushrooms at the moment, so I've left the tree alive. I've coppiced it so it's not shading everything else, and it's good feed source. But maybe this winter I can come down, cut it, and I can make me some mushroom logs when I actually have time, okay? But everything else I've cut down to about this height. This is a really good height because the majority of what we keep is going to be pigs and sheep, okay? Your pigs, like I said, it's going to be down here, and your sheep are going to be up here. We don't see a lot of life on this one. It's a little bit down in there. Just depends on your tree. Some of them will die off. But when you coppice them, you want them to be as smooth as you can. I don't get too crazy with it. I don't worry too much about it. But if possible, I'll slant it just a little bit so the water will run off, okay? But if you look down here at this one, this is a really good example. Come around here. You can see the life. If you get real close, you can see all of the life. You've got green here, here, here. Sprigs of green. All that purple is leaves as well. This is a sweet gum. Sweet gums are terrible for lumber. They're terrible for pretty much everything except feed. Sweet gum makes an excellent feed. It blows up. It's very difficult to kill. So when you coppice it like this, it's just high enough that they typically aren't going to kill it off. The cattle will eat some of the sweet gum, and it's actually got some nutrition that they don't get in grass. But for the most part, you're trying to feed sheep and goats down in here, and maybe some pigs. With all of this water, I'm probably not going to bring the pigs down in here. Okay, so just walk along with me, and you can see some of the stuff we've got. Notice the creek. We have not gone very far at all. We've probably only gone about 40 feet, and you see just how washed out this creek is. This is because it's been shaded, okay? There's no ability to have any real life here. Now that we've opened up the canopy and we've allowed life to get down in here, we're going to start seeing growth, and that's going to hold some of that together, but it's also going to start to feed animals. This whole strip right here, we weren't able to feed deer, wildlife, weren't able to feed turkeys, and we certainly wasn't able to feed anything that we could eat later on ourselves. But like this, we're feeding wildlife and we're feeding animals that we may eat ourselves, okay? So you come on along over here. This is a real good example of what we did. This one was a little, not exactly sure what that is, what type of tree that is. Could be some, I don't think it's an oak. Not sure what it is. I experimented with putting some slits in there. I didn't know if that would help force growth from the split itself. I don't see that. To me, it just looks like it's blowing up growth everywhere. But this is a good example of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get life. This is all edible life. Before, the trees were so tall that the animals couldn't really get anything. If you look behind you, behind this fence, this is the best it would ever look. And this right here didn't even look this good, okay? But this is what this over here did look like last year. You would get some growth, but you wouldn't get a lot of stuff that an animal could get to. So you would get deer and things like that that could eat a little bit of it, but it's only the very edge. That's all they're getting. Maybe 40 feet in at best. If you look very far back into that woods, if we walk into there, there's not a lot of food, okay? There's going to be a lot of food out here. So that's really what you're trying to do, guys. You're trying to get life, trying to get things that these animals can eat. When you look at these weeds right here, like I said, we're not trying to feed cattle out here. We're trying to feed goats and sheep. These weeds right here, these things are terrible when we're thinking about cattle, okay? But when we're thinking about sheep, goats, and pigs, these things are awesome. Now, the reason they're awesome is, number one, they're an evergreen. So that's giving us green food for your animals through the winter, okay? Number two, they grow a bulb. That bulb is a good source of food for pigs. Pigs will dig that bulb up and eat it if you're trying to feed pigs out here. They will, if you're not careful, they'll kill that out. If you want to kill that out, that's a good thing. But this is a good source of food for sheep. Excuse me, everybody. That pollen's really starting to get to me. So all we did was we knocked everything off and dropped it to the ground. Noticed how, and we just dropped it everywhere. We didn't worry about what direction we were going. I came back in here with an excavator and I piled some of it up as best I could. Whatever I could reach, I had to be careful not to get stuck in the creek. But you notice how I left life right at the edge of the creek, okay? So I'm gonna support my life and I'm holding my creek bank up, if you'll come over here and look, the way this one already was. It was holding my creek bank up. So I've got that big root structure that comes from trees, but now I'm also going to start to get a lot more of that smaller root structure, and we're going to start to get grass, the same as you saw up there where we had been brush hogging in the past, in that area over there. So that grass is really what helps to hold that together better than even a tree root. Everyone thinks because a tree root is big that's good for holding soil together, but actually grass roots, if you think about a net, when you throw a net out into the water to catch fish, the smaller that net, the smaller fish you will catch. Well, if you're trying to hold dirt, you want a small net, okay? So that's going to be small roots like grass roots. These big roots like tree roots are not necessarily going to hold as well, okay? So that's kind of what we're doing. We're just trying to open that up, and we're trying to get feed. Some other examples of things that we're doing here, if you'll look, let's see. Right here is a good example, okay? This is a really good example of layering food right here, okay? Right here we have 2 acorn trees. These are 2 white oak trees, okay? They're going to, in the future, if we choose to keep them, then these trees will drop acorns that will feed the sheep, okay? Not good for the cattle, but they will feed sheep and they'll also feed pigs. So we've got a source of food that's up in the air, okay? Now we've got another source of food that's a little bit taller right here, just tall enough where nothing can kill it out, but yet it's still growing and supporting a lot of food and a lot of sunlight. This is the south over here. Notice how I laid this out. A lot of sunlight is going to be able to hit this right here while still hitting your taller trees in the back, okay? So this is food. All of this is like fodder, essentially. It's really good food that the animals are going to be able to eat. So now we come out on the south side of your trees. You know, you've got your taller trees on your north side, and the farther south you get a little bit taller, and I mean a little bit shorter, and then even shorter than that. You've got these 2 trees right here. Because the south, you know, you don't want this tree blocking the light of this tree necessarily. So that would be the better way to lay it out. And if you really want to lay it out really well, then you start getting some of these little stumps as well. And like I said, you're leaving some edge right here to this soft ground, like this one right in here. We've left this. This is sweet gum. It's a little small split sweet gum. By this summer, that is going to absolutely explode with a lot of life just blowing up out of there, okay? But it's also going to help hold some of this together, okay? So this is working out. You can see here where we cut one down, that's going to blow out some life. And another benefit to leaving these stumps up tall, like this right here, if we decide, hey, we don't want this stump here anymore, maybe it's not producing, maybe we don't like where it's sitting, maybe we can't quite get a four-wheeler through the way we'd normally like it, whatever, maybe we just don't like what it looks like. When it's tall like this, instead of being down on the ground, I can reach in here with an excavator, grab it, push it over, okay? Or I can come in with a tractor and push it over. It's easier to tear out from the root when it's tall. A lot of times people will cut their stumps down super low, which is good if you don't intend to dig the stump up, okay? If you just want to get a brush hog over, cut it down as low as you can get. If you want to harvest as much timber as you can, cut it down as low as you can get. But if your only goal is to cut it, you don't have any other goals, and you wouldn't mind digging it up later, if you leave a little height on that stump, it makes it really easy to dig up later on if you ever want to. So if you come back in here, you can see we've strategically left several of them higher and lower. All of our pine stumps we've left high enough because I don't think they're going to support any life. So we'll probably come through with an excavator and tear all of those out. But we wouldn't have to, because this whole section in here, we'll probably never be able to get in here with a brush hog, because I wouldn't want to come in here and tear up the creek. I could be wrong. I may come in here later, But I feel like the sheep are going to do a good enough job keeping this clean. There's a whole variety of different types of trees and different types of brush. One of the benefits to cutting all of this brush, these different types of trees, is these trees have been harvesting nutrients off of your land for years and years, okay? And now that you've cut the tree back, and actually we probably want to cut this dead one down so we can get some life on that stump right there, okay? But now that we've cut these back, okay, all of that nutrients, all of those roots have dug down deep and they've harvested lots and lots of nutrients and they're reaching nutrients. Now that nutrients is available for your animals, available for you to feed those animals with, okay? So that's kind of the big benefit there. It's not just calories. Like, you're not just trying to feed calories here. You're really thinking in terms of high nutrients. If you want a good study, something just to go study, consider looking up tree hay. It's not going to work for everyone. Some homesteaders and stuff do it. But what is interesting about tree hay is that it is very nutritionally dense for animals. Sometimes even a lot better than traditional grass hay. Might be something worth just looking at for something fun. But you can kind of see the edge here, what we've got. Of course, in the springtime, you'll get more of these little small bits of grass and stuff like that. But this is another stump at this height right here. You can't hardly see it. But this is just a good example, guys. We've piled this up as best we can. And you think to yourself, well, man, why wouldn't you pull all that out and burn it? There's no real point. This is for sheep. This is for goats. This is just a nice little place that the sheep and goats can get in. Sheep love jumping up on piles, okay? Now, this will rot down fairly quickly. And because it's below our house, we want to get rid of it, okay? But realistically, with that hill right there and everything, it's just kind of hard to get this out. That's why I haven't prioritized it. I did put it in a pile. I may come back later with my tractor, maybe with a grapple, and get it out. That hill's a lot steeper than it looks, and it's just not the most fun getting out of here with a load on the end of your tractor. Rollovers are definitely the easiest way to get killed if you're a farmer. Probably the most popular if you look it up. So it's just not something I want to do. Now, grapevines, if you look behind us here, I didn't disconnect any grapevines. I pulled them all down with the excavator, just grabbed hold of them and just pulled them down, or cut the trees and let the tree fall and hold the grapevine, but I didn't kill the vine. The reason is because there's tons and tons of life here. These things have all kinds of nutrition. They'll blow out. Not only that, this summer, there's going to be some really good grapes that I can get to out here. So, might seem a little crazy, but this is my favorite way to get grapes. I don't even have to grow them anywhere else. They're already in the tree. I cut the tree down. Now the tree's laying down is food for all the cattle and the sheep, but it's also something that I can come in and enjoy in the summertime every now and then. Whatever the case may be, this is how I like to manage little areas like this, because this area basically supplied no cash flow for our farm. It's a small area, and it supplied no food for our homestead, okay? Now this area right here is going to flush out, and we're going to be able to support a huge amount of actual life, whether it be through deer or through wild turkeys that are coming in. They'll be eating the grapes and things like that down close to the ground, or just simply by feeding all of the sheep that we're going to be raising in here. This is a way to increase the amount of food that you have on your landscape, okay? Because overall, when you're just feeding from grass, there's only so many cows that you can raise on that grass. This plot of land that we have here is 25 acres that we are living on, okay? There's only a few cows that we can raise here, but the amount of sheep that we can raise here, even if we don't take up the grazing, like if we decide to cut all of the sheep out of the grass and only graze them in here, we're not losing any grazing, okay? If we set up a hot wire and only graze our sheep in these areas, then we're not hurting our cattle at all. Our cattle are getting just the same amount of grazing as they would be, okay? But now you've increased all of this grazing for your sheep. So, guys, this is just another really good way. It's one of my favorite ways to increase the amount of animals that you can raise on your land. It's always a good thing to raise sheep and cattle together anyway. So this is a really good way that you can do that. And every now and then, maybe once a year in the dents of the summer, you can mob graze some cattle through here once or twice just to kind of push some stuff around. With that note, we have a lot of other little mob grazing videos that we've actually done in this section back when it was full of trees. Feel free, go check those out. Like and subscribe for more.